Bentar ini. S2 Fisika tuh, Dok.
Oh iya. Namanya Pak Muhammad Master ini ya. Alhamdulillah, selamat bergabung.
Terima kasih, Dokter.
Assalamualaikum.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Dokter Put, terima kasih bergabung. Masih sempat pagi-pagi. Oh, ini Prof Teguh juga sudah bergabung. Matur nuwun.
Iya, ini sudah hilang lagi. Saya Muhammad Mas. Oh, iya. Itu Mas Menteri.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Laptop saya nggak bisa itu
videonya, Prof.
Iya, nggak tahu apa. Nggak tahu ini fail to start the video camera.
Oh, iya.
Enggak apa-apa. Kalau Teguh, itu ada undangan besok itu ya?
Iya. Aku tadi malam kirim ke untuk minta surat tugas. Kita berdua. Kan disuruh bawa SPPD.
Okay.
Dari ke rumah sakit.
Rumah sakit atau fakultas yang gampang aja fakultas.
Prof, Dokter ini sudah streaming YouTube. Mohon maaf. Streaming YouTube untuk acara ini.
Oh, gitu.
Sangat.
Monggo, mungkin dapat di-rename ya dari institusi, misalnya Yubi Teguh Wahyu Sarjono, Yubi Dr. Sipuranto. Mohon maaf, saya juga untuk Pak Muhammad Master mungkin juga Yubi ya. Terus ada saya lihat di sini ada Bu Nora, ini dari mana ya? Mohon ditulis institusinya, Bu, mohon maaf. Matur nuwun, Prof. Teguh. Mbak Indah, untuk Pak Dekan tolong ditambah DIN, Mbak Indah. DIN garis underscore nama beliau. Matur nuwun, Dr. Sahdevi sudah hadir, Pak Sekjur.
Ditulis di chat aja Prof. Luki supaya yang lain.
Oh, iya.
Assalamualaikum.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Kesehatan adalah sebuah isu global yang perlu komitmen seluruh bangsa, termasuk Indonesia, guna mempertahankan masa depan sebuah bangsa. Indonesia sebagai negara kepulauan terbesar dengan jumlah penduduk terbesar keempat di dunia, mengambil peran strategis dalam membangun kesehatan bagi masyarakat dunia. Terletak di Jawa Timur, dengan suasana akademik yang mendukung, lingkungan yang nyaman dan menyambut hangat, Malang telah menjadi salah satu tempat yang paling dipilih sebagai kota tujuan untuk pendidikan tinggi. Malang memiliki 4 universitas negeri dan swasta yang memberikan pendidikan tinggi dalam ilmu kedokteran dan kesehatan, salah satunya Universitas Brawijaya. Universitas Brawijaya terus berkembang sebagai satu dari 10 perguruan tinggi terbaik di Indonesia dan diperhitungkan di Asia Tenggara dengan visi menjadi perguruan tinggi pelopor dan pembahas internasional dalam ilmu pengetahuan, teknologi, seni, dan humaniora, terutama yang menunjang industri berbasis budaya untuk kesejahteraan masyarakat. Fakultas Kedokteran menjadi salah satu fakultas pilihan utama dan terus menorehkan prestasi dengan komitmen pada keunggulan dan inovasi. Berawal dari Sekolah Tinggi Kedokteran Malang, didirikan pada 14 September 1963, Fakultas Kedokteran resmi menjadi bagian dari Universitas Brawijaya pada tanggal 14 Januari 1974 dan telah melalui 15 masa kepemimpinan dekan. Sejak berdiri dengan satu program pendidikan dokter, FKUB terus menjadi pelopor pengembangan pendidikan spesialis dan profesional kesehatan lain. Hingga tahun 2020, FKUB telah berkembang menjadi 6 jurusan, yaitu kedokteran dan pendidikan spesialis, keperawatan, gizi, kebidanan, dan farmasi dengan 33 program studi yang telah mendapatkan pengakuan baik dengan sertifikasi internasional dari AUNQIE, ASEAN University Network Quality Assurance, maupun akreditasi unggul dari Lampetikes, Lembaga Akreditasi Mandiri Pendidikan Tinggi Kesehatan. Didukung oleh 402 dosen dengan 18 profesor dan 19 lektor kepala. Setiap tahun FKUB menghasilkan 7.081 lulusan yang menjadi bagian dari sumber daya manusia kesehatan Indonesia dan mengabdi di penjuru Nusantara. Berkomitmen meningkatkan kualitas hidup masyarakat demi kemajuan Indonesia yang lebih baik melalui kolaborasi interprofesional, proses pendidikan di semua jurusan, mengedepankan integrasi pengetahuan, keterampilan, dan keahlian dalam suasana akademik yang kondusif. Keenam jurusan, kedokteran, pendidikan spesialis, keperawatan, gizi, kebidanan, dan farmasi terus berkembang melalui pendidikan, penelitian, dan pengabdian masyarakat.
Inilah jurusan kedokteran yang merupakan salah satu jurusan di Fakultas Kedokteran Universitas Brawijaya. Jurusan kedokteran ini aktif melakukan penelitian dengan melibatkan dosen-dosen serta penerbitan jurnal serta melakukan inovasi-inovasi. Sampai saat ini jurusan kedokteran telah berhasil mencetak tenaga dokter yang tersebar di seluruh pelosok Nusantara dan luar negeri. Kedepannya jurusan kedokteran juga akan menjalankan suatu sistem yang baru yang disebut sebagai SIMBA, yaitu suatu sistem informasi manajemen berbasis akreditasi.
Kekurangan dan distribusi dokter spesialis tidak merata di Nusantara menjadi dasar pengembangan program studi pendidikan dokter spesialis dan subspesialis berfokus pada ethical conduct, keterampilan riset klinis dan biomedis yang berpihak pada kebutuhan pasien menjadi keunggulan lulusan program studi pendidikan dokter spesialis dan subspesialis di FKUB.
Jurusan Keperawatan Fakultas Kedokteran Universitas Brawijaya berkomitmen mendidik mahasiswa menjadi seorang perawat profesional yang memiliki daya saing di tingkat regional, nasional, dan global melalui pendidikan kesehatan berbasis inovasi dan pelayanan kesehatan. Satu hati mengabdi, satu jiwa merawat bangsa.
Jurusan Gizi Fakultas Kedokteran Universitas Brawijaya memiliki visi yaitu menjadi institusi pendidikan di bidang gizi manusia yang bermutu internasional pada tahun 2027. Dalam upaya untuk mencetak lulusan nutrisionis dan dietitian yang unggul serta mampu berkompetisi baik nasional maupun global, kami berusaha menjaga mutu pembelajaran, menyediakan fasilitas sesuai dengan standar yang telah ditetapkan, meningkatkan mutu dari tenaga pendidik, serta menjalin kerjasama, baik kerjasama nasional maupun internasional.
Berawal di tahun 2009, pengembangan jurusan kebidanan menjadi bagian dari komitmen fakultas untuk mendorong pendidikan tinggi, mencetak sumber daya manusia kesehatan di bidang kebidanan. Kami juga selalu aktif melakukan riset, publikasi nasional maupun internasional, dan terus berupaya mengembangkan secara bersama sifatnya nasional maupun internasional dengan melakukan kuliah online, joint research, dan pengabdian masyarakat.
Departemen Farmasi terdiri dari 2 program studi. Pertama adalah S1, Sarjana Farmasi, dan kedua Apoteker Profesional Program. Departemen Farmasi saat ini berorientasi pada clinical farmasi dan komunitas farmasi, tapi ke depan kita akan melanjutkan ke arah drug development, biofarmasetik, dan small molecule, dan delivery system.
Fakultas Kedokteran terus memantapkan diri menjadi fakultas yang unggul dan berkomitmen menjadi institusi pendidikan kedokteran dan kesehatan yang terkemuka dan bertaraf internasional. Komitmen tersebut didukung dengan kelengkapan dan pengembangan sarana prasarana pembelajaran yang modern dan berbasis teknologi informasi. Di antaranya, Computer-Based Laboratory, Skill Laboratory, Anatomy Museum, Animal Lab, Biomedical Lab, Nutrition Lab, Tim Emergency dan Disaster TED. Proses pendidikan profesional kesehatan di FKUB didukung oleh Rumah Sakit Pendidikan Utama dan jejaring yang menjadi bagian dari sistem pendidikan serta pelayanan kesehatan. Di antaranya, Rumah Sakit Saiful Anwar yang telah mendapatkan penghargaan akreditasi internasional Bintang 6 oleh Komisi Akreditasi Rumah Sakit Indonesia. Rumah Sakit Universitas Brawijaya menjadi satu dari rumah sakit perguruan tinggi yang telah terakreditasi paripurna. Rumah Sakit Daerah Dr. Iskak Tulungagung yang menjadi pelopor pengembangan jejaring sistem pelayanan emergensi berbasis masyarakat yang terintegrasi melalui program Public Safety Center dan telah mendapatkan award dari International Hospital Federation. Tidak hanya berkomitmen pada keunggulan akademik, FKUB juga mendorong prestasi mahasiswa sesuai minat bakat dan penalaran yang didukung dengan program pengabdian masyarakat.
Kami berkomitmen untuk menciptakan kegiatan bagi mahasiswa yang senantiasa mengutamakan aktivitas meningkatkan kemampuan dalam proses berpikir secara nalar dan kemampuan analisa, baik pada kegiatan kurikuler, kokurikuler, serta ekstrakurikuler, serta selalu berfokus pada pengembangan profesionalisme berpedoman pada etika dan interaksi yang baik dalam hubungan multidisiplin profesi juga terhadap pasien. Menjadi kebanggaan dan kebahagiaan kami bahwa mahasiswa FKUB terus menunjukkan prestasi dalam ajang nasional, internasional, serta bakti kepada negeri seperti aktivitas FKUB mengajar, desa binaan, serta praktek kerja nyata mahasiswa terintegrasi demi tercapainya kompetensi serta pengabdian juga mendekatkan diri kepada masyarakat.
Fakultas Kedokteran Universitas Brawijaya menghasilkan lulusan di bidang kedokteran dan kesehatan yang beriman, bertakwa, berakhlak terpuji, dan memiliki profesionalisme sehingga mampu mengabdi pada bangsa dan memiliki keunggulan kompetitif pada skala nasional maupun internasional.
Halo, nama saya Manerul Iman. Saya mahasiswa FKUB Angkatan 2017.
Perkenalkan, nama saya Ulil Afla dari jurusan Ilmu Keperawatan 2017.
Nama saya Hazrina Putri, mahasiswa jurusan Ilmu Gizi Angkatan 2017.
Saya Fredina Rosa dari program studi Sarjana Kebidanan.
Saya Hilmeka Prasetyo, saya dari Farmasi Angkatan 2017. Belajar di FKUB
sangat menyenangkan karena memiliki fasilitas dan staf pengajar yang sangat mumpuni.
Tentunya kita tidak hanya belajar tentang ilmu-ilmu kesehatan, tetapi di sini juga kami belajar berorganisasi dan juga belajar untuk mengabdi.
Kedepannya saya berharap Fakultas Kedokteran bisa makin sukses,
bisa lebih baik ke depannya, terutama pada fasilitasnya, layanan administrasinya, serta
memberi lebih banyak kontribusi lagi kepada masyarakat.
Dapat terus meningkatkan pelayanan belajar mengajarnya, agar dapat menciptakan lulusan yang unggul untuk bermanfaat di kehidupan kesehatan di Indonesia.
Menempuh pendidikan di Fakultas Kedokteran Universitas Brawijaya mengajarkan kami berbagai nilai dasar penting untuk menjadi calon tenaga kesehatan yang unggul. Nilai tersebut adalah religius, moralis, intelek, profesional, serta kepemimpinan dan kolegalitas. Keseluruhan nilai tersebut diajarkan dalam kegiatan akademik maupun non-akademik yang sangat didukung oleh Fakultas Kedokteran Universitas Brawijaya.
Tidak hanya dari mahasiswa yang aktif dan memiliki prestasi gemilang, FKUB juga terus mengembangkan keunggulan pengembangan keilmuan melalui kerjasama, riset, dan publikasi.
Dalam upaya mencapai visi dan misi FKUB, riset dan kerjasama internasional menjadi sangat penting sebagai penopang utama agar FKUB mencapai mutu yang diakui internasional, dikenal tidak hanya di tingkat nasional, tetapi juga diakui di tingkat internasional. Selama ini banyak publikasi internasional yang sudah dihasilkan oleh para staf FKUB melalui riset-riset yang mempunyai kualitas yang sangat tinggi. Kami dukung oleh sistem dan fasilitas yang dapat mencapai standar yang tinggi, demikian pula dengan inovasi yang dihasilkan berupa produk-produk ilmiah yang dapat dimanfaatkan oleh masyarakat secara langsung maupun tidak langsung.
Bapak Ibu hadirin sekalian, sesaat lagi acara akan kita mulai. Namun, kami mohon kepada Bapak Ibu sekalian untuk berkenan beri nama sesuai dengan institusi masing-masing. Dear all, please rename as following institutional with name _ personal name.
Bakti dan capaian alumni FKUB bagi bangsa dan dunia menjadi wujud komitmen FKUB pada permasalahan kesehatan nasional dan global. FKUB, Sivitas Akademika, dan alumni terus mewujudkan bakti dan prestasi bagi negeri dan dunia dengan berpartisipasi dalam penanggulangan bencana nasional, di antaranya melalui Tim Emergency and Disaster yang menjadi salah satu kepeloporan dan keunggulan FKUB bagi Indonesia yang rawan bencana. Kesadaran pada kepedulian lingkungan dan keberlanjutan pembangunan dengan bank klinik sampah, kampung tangguh, concern pada keunikan permasalahan kesehatan masyarakat Indonesia yang menjadi rumah bagi spesies ular terbanyak di dunia. Dengan pengembangan aplikasi pemetaan snake bites and pattern komunitas peduli, serta yayasan, inisiasi model, dan Hospital Without Walls yang mendapat penghargaan.
Baiklah Bapak Ibu sekalian, sesaat lagi acara akan segera dimulai. Namun perlu kami ingatkan kepada Bapak Ibu sekalian, segenap partisipan untuk merename nama sesuai dengan institusi masing-masing. Dear all, please rename as following institutional with name underscore personal name. Thank you. Apa bisa kita mulai? Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. First of all, I would like to say welcome to Associate Professor Werasak Sarawuncai, PhD, Head of SST Frag Laboratory from Kyung Mongkut University of Technology, Thonburi, Thailand, and Mr. Patarudapon, PhD, candidate from Massachusetts Institute of Technology, USA, as our speakers today. The Dean and Vice Dean of Faculty of Medicine, Universitas Brawijaya, the Head of Doctoral Program in Medical Sciences, and our distinguished guests, all of the audience, and all participants. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Muhammad Ana Mustafa. It's an honor to be your Master of Ceremony on this very occasion today. Regarding the 3-in-1 project of doctoral program in medical science, we proudly present as a guest lecture on topic augmented reality and artificial intelligence technology for medicine, which is the title is jumping into the digital porn of reality tech and artificial intelligence. Why is that? First, let's say thanks to Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala for His guidance, blessing, health, and mercy, so we can attend this special event without any obstacles. Before we step on the lecture, start this morning event, let's listen to the national anthem of Indonesia Raya. Thank you. Next agenda, we invite the head of the doctoral program in medical sciences to give a greeting speech to Professor Dr. Luki Enggar Fitri MKes, Specialist Parasitology Clinic. Time is yours.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Anang. The honorable speakers, Associated Professor Werasak Surarencai, PhD, and Mr. Pet Pataru Nutapons, the Dean of Faculty of Medicine Universitas Brawijaya, Dr. Wisnu Barlianto, MSc Med, SPA, Consultant, the head on the Secretary of Medical Department, Dr. Nur Samsu, SPPD, KKH, and Dr. Sahdevi, SPS Consultant, and all the participants, especially the FNUB academic community, which I am proud of. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Alhamdulillahirabbil alamin. First of all, I would like to thank to every one of you for being here today. It is such an honor for me to speak on behalf of the organizer, and let me begin by giving you a warm welcome to the 3-in-1 project doctoral program in medical science guest lecture in virtual, augmented reality, and artificial intelligence technology for medicine. Ladies and gentlemen, the doctoral program in medical science, or DPMS, Faculty of Medicine, Universitas Brawijaya, strive to support the vision to become an internationally recognized pioneer and reformer study program by constantly improving the quality of education, research, and community service activities. One of which through a multi, inter, and transdisciplinary collaboration. This includes the annual 3-in-1 program when the DPMS invites world-renowned academicians and industrial practitioners to deliver lectures, conduct joint research and supervision projects, and perform public services. To respond the increasing competitiveness and rapid technological development in the medical field, one of the research interests in this doctoral program is medical technology. To reinforce this year, the DPMS collaborates with Associated Professor Werasak Surarencai from King Mongkut University of Technology, Thonburi, or KMUTT, in the 3-in-1 program. Joining us today is also a bright young researcher, Mr. Patara Nutapons, a PhD candidate at the prestigious Massachusetts Institute of Technology. Thank you for your coming. Ladies and gentlemen, I can see big potential from the participants, and I hope that through this event, we all can learn an emerging technologies for health and medicine, virtual, augmented reality, artificial intelligence in nearly all aspects of healthcare. These technologies are becoming more commonplace and impacts all healthcare disciplines. On behalf of the organizer, I would like to say once more, welcome. Thank you very much for sharing your expertise with us today. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you, Prof. Lucky, for your speech. Next, please welcome to the Dean of Faculty of Medicine, Universitas Brawijaya, Dr. Wisnu Balianto, MSc Med, Pediatrician Consultant, to give the opening speech and also officially open the guest lecture. Dr. Wisnu, time is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Anang. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. The Honorable Speaker, Associated Professor Werasak Surarencai, PhD. The Honorable Speaker, Mr. Panara Nutapon. The Honorable Head of Department of Medicine. The Honorable the Head of the Doctoral Program in Medical Science, Professor Dr. Luki Gravitri, MKes, SPPK, and all the audience in today's lecture. First, let us praise God for blessing us with health that we can all be here today. One of the efforts to improve the ranking of world-class universities is to continue in developing research collaboration with researchers and experts around the world to improve academic reputation. And in this morning, I would like to appreciate the doctoral program in medical science for holding today's activities, augmented reality is the art of superimposing computer-generated content of a live view of the world. Augmented reality integrates digital information with the user environment in real time, which can make medical education and research more accessible and affordable. And I would like to thank to the Honorable Associate Professor Wirasak Songche and Mr. Pat Panatunapon for the chance to give lecture in my faculty, and I hope this collaboration will develop in depth in the future. Hopefully, this activity can improve the quality of dissemination of research results, increase adaptation and of research product into healthcare and industry, develop cooperation and collaboration, follow up with the development science and technology in the field of medicine and health. Finally, by saying Bismillahirrahmanirrahim, I would like to officially open today's guest lecture. May this event be fruitful and we all gain valuable information. Thank you and enjoy the lecture. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you, Dr. Wisnu, for the opening speech. Well, ladies and gentlemen, before we step on to the lecture, we would like to take photo session for all the audience. Please turn on your video and facing straight to the camera. Mrs. Indu, can you help us? Okay, we can start to take a picture. 1, 2, 3. Okay, next slide. 1, 2, 3. Okay, next slide. 1, 2, 3. Okay, and the last session. 1, 2, 3. Okay, thank you very much for your attention. Well, ladies and gentlemen, now we come to the main session of today's event, which is the first speaker is Associate Professor Wirasak Sararunchai, Head of ISST Freak Laboratory from King Mongkut University of Technology, Tanburi, Thailand. And the second speaker is Mr. Pat Patarundaporn, PhD candidate from Massachusetts Institute of Technology, USA. The session will be moderated by Dr. Aulia Rahmi Prawesti, PhD. And please allow me to introduce a brief curriculum vitae of Dr. Aulia. Okay, Dr. Aulia received her medical degree from the Faculty of Medicine, Universitas Brawijaya in 2011. She then pursued her PhD degree in the Faculty of Tropical Medicine, Heidel University, in the field of parasitology, with a particular interest in the immunodiagnosis development of intestinal parasites. After receiving her PhD degree in tropical medicine in 2020, she became an academic staff in the Department of Parasitology, Faculty of Medicine, Universitas Brawijaya, where she also currently held a position as the head of the journal Publishing Unite. Fulfill her fascination in advanced therapy medical projects. At present, she also conducts joint research project with the Institute of Personalized Genomic and Gene Therapy, Faculty Medicine of Siritas Hospital, Thailand. Okay, we would like welcome on screen Dr. Aulia Prawesti, PhD, as a moderator for today's lecture, and she will fully guide the session. So Dr. Aulia, time and screen is yours.
Okay, thank you very much. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning to the Honorable Dean of the Medical Faculty, to the head of the study program of the doctoral program in medical sciences, and the head of the medical school and secretary of the medical school. And I also see the vice dean for education, and all of the distinguished guests, and of course, our guest speaker today, Associate Professor Wirasak Sararunchai. We would like to welcome all of you in today's event. And before we start, I'd like to maybe say hi a bit to our speaker. Good morning. Sawadee ka, Ajahn.
Good morning, Dr. Aulia.
Good morning. It's nice to have you here today. And maybe Kun Pat, I'm not sure if he has already joined us.
Couple minutes. Yeah.
All right. Okay. So while we wait, probably allow me to introduce a little bit about today's speakers. Sorry, let me share the screen. So today we will have two great internationally recognized speakers, the first of which will be Associate Professor Wirasak Surarunchai. I hope I pronounced the name correctly. He's currently the head of the SST and the Freak Lab in the School of Biosources and Technology, KMUTT, Thailand. And he's an expert in sensor technology, nanotechnology, electrochemistry, and analytical chemistry. And he has produced over 150 publications in reputable journals in these fields, earning him an H index of 27. He has mentored many bachelor, master, and PhD students. And he has out-of-the-box lab, I would say. It's called the Futuristic Research in Enigmatic and Aesthetic Knowledge, or the Freak Lab. Maybe Ajahn Wirasak can elaborate more about this later, where he continues to bring forth young researchers with out-of-the-box mindsets in creating future innovations. One of which will also be joining us today, Mr. Pat Pataratnutapon, who is a research assistant and also a PhD candidate at the Fluid Interfaces Research Group at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, US, the MIT. He has a major research interest in the interface between biological and digital system, and he collaborates with large giant institutions such as NASA, IBM, and Harvard, and his interdisciplinary research projects include AI characters for learning and well-being. This is, I read, it's about, some of them include huggable holograms, and also human AI co-reasoning and wearable lab for space exploration that allows continuous monitoring of the organs and the vital signs, and also machine learning models related to mental health issues. This has earned him, I think, an award during the hackathon, because he can recognize people who have suicidal thoughts through their social media, and also mind-controlled 3D printers. And his work has been published in Nature, IEE, ACM journals, and the list goes on. And his artistic projects also, some of which with Ajahn Wirasak also, has been displayed worldwide. His publication is featured in Forbes, Times, Nat Geo, and The Guardian. And also by incorporating his fascination in dinosaurs, you might hear more about this from him directly later, he continuously strives in prototyping the impossible. As the audiences here, I would highly suggest you to watch his TED Talk, because it's really interesting, and I really became a fan after I watched this, to create the future innovations. So maybe that's it. While waiting for Dr. Pat, sorry, but we're waiting for Kun Pat. Ajahn, how are you today? Good morning.
I'm doing good, thank you.
Right.
I just realized you are graduated from tropical medicine.
Yes, Ajahn, yes.
Right.
Yes.
Actually, in this October, I would partly work with the worker in Mahidol University.
Oh,
and
that's nice.
to join hand with the faculty of the tropical medicine.
Oh, that's great. That's great. I'm actually planning to come this July.
All right. July.
Right.
Yeah, great.
Right. You will be in Indo.
So actually, tomorrow there's a group from Molu Mahidol Oxford. Yeah, they're coming to my lab.
Oh, that's great. Okay, so actually we might have met before without even realizing it, probably.
Yeah.
All right. So maybe I would just extend the warm welcome, and maybe I will leave the screen to you gentlemen. Would that be okay?
Right. Okay. Okay.
All
Thank
right.
you much. Right. Thank you. Thank you,
Okay.
Aurea.
All right.
Okay. So, actually, I would not present the work that is going to be something like jumping into the digital hole of the technology and AI. But I have several questions as well, not only your side, my side as well. In fact, okay, let's thanks the organizing committee for the invited, and we say selamat pagi to and hello, sawasdee, everybody. And actually, I'm not first hand in the technologies, either the reality or AI. I am a source of the users, or say, or can say, would say application enhancers. Because of myself as a signal or data retrievers, retrieving from sensors, and specialist in sensors area. That's mean my work seems to be sort of the applications pursuing by using such a new technology tools. So then it would be better to ask my colleague Pat Prapanpon. Actually, he dragged me into this area actually.
I see. Right.
Since maybe 5 to 6 years ago, when he was a high school student in the US, and perhaps he can share you more. Pat, totally, he's a first hand. I don't want to speak by open the textbook and explain things about the technology myself. Better to give to the first hand. Pat is one of the first hand who can introduce you in the theories and methodologies, and also the application towards the healthcare.
All right, that's great.
And Pat, are you here now?
Yeah, I try to. Hello, Pat, are you here? Probably not yet. Well,
He just finished the meeting at NASA.
All right. I was worried he might fall asleep since it might be like evening there, but okay, maybe we can wait a little bit.
Yeah.
And we will be welcoming you here in a few weeks.
So okay, I would say something which relate to the technology. My work, actually, I have gave a talk recently. I can't remember which year. Perhaps Professor Lokis can tell. That was 4 or 5 years ago, isn't it?
I'm not sure. You came here at that time. I think that was 2018.
Yeah. I went to UB for give a talk, and I gave talk on the census area, and also the free lab works. Free lab works is some of them is related to future of the healthcare technology as well.
Right.
And more and more we expand into the things that would be interested. But I think for the application, it would be easier for me to explain. But for the theory or methodology, I would give to Pat.
All right. Yes, I think this. I also read several of his publications because I actually did not expect to understand, but the way he wrote it was so lay that even me that has no background at all in engineering could understand it. And some of which is the wearable lab, Azan. Maybe you knew.
Right. Yeah. We do wearable sensing devices. For example, looking at the creatinines in tears, in sweat, and in urines. And then for example, in sweat, we use the creatinines as a biomarkers to looking at the stress of the peoples in different lifestyles. For example, during reading, working out, or several things, or gardening, something like that, and looking at the creatinine amount, and then we using the AI to predict to predict the relation between the creatinine and their stress in any events.
Interesting. And I see that he has joined us. Good evening. Hello, Pat. Can you hear us?
Yes. Thank you. Hi, how are you?
Hi, I'm fine. Could maybe
It's coming, so you can share theory, methodologies, and I already explained them why I invite you instead of myself give a talk, because I was dragged by yourself to give push me into the pond of the technologies.
All right, gentlemen. So the time and screen is yours.
Thank you so much, and I'm excited to be here. So my name is Pat. I'm a former student and former mentee of Professor Weerasakh. He has been a wonderful mentor, and now I'm a PhD student at MIT Media Lab, and also affiliated with the Freak Lab, or the first futuristic research cluster, of Southeast Asia. So we hope to work with many of you. And today I would like to talk about the intersection of human, AI, wearable technology, and I coined the term cyborg health, which is to represent an ongoing sort of research on sort of how technology can help us become more healthy and so on. And for some of you that don't know me, I'm Pat. I love dinosaurs, as you can see on the screen. So if you have a question about that, feel free to ask me. So a little bit about the MIT Media Lab, or the lab that I'm part of. Many of you might have heard of MIT, right? It's one of the most prestigious research university in the world. MIT Media Lab is a lab inside MIT that work on futuristic technology, how we can use technology as a media to better ourselves. The Media Lab has created many powerful technology that we are using today, from touchscreen to self-driving car, wearable technology, and so on. All of these, precede its time, like wearable technology that we are now using, like smartwatch or touchscreen that we are now using was invented in 1993 or 1984, like back then. But it really shows sort of the tendency for the lab to have forward thinking and look into the future possibilities and sort of do them, as people think about, right? And right now the lab is a home for, many more crazy ideas, which I'm going to talk about today. From technology that allow for transferring of touch over digital platform, technology that allow people to control dreams, content, program the dreams. If you want to dream about something, you can do that now. Architecture that can grow like a plant, or even a plant that become a robot, right? So all these are crazy ideas that are being explored today at the MIT Media Lab. And the unique thing about this place is that it combines different disciplines. It allows artists to work with scientists, engineer, and designer and come up with the future, right? So this is what we are talking about. And today we will talk about new possibilities, new kind of capabilities that will allow us to researcher to think about new ways to design, experiment, and deploy technology related to AI and human health. And I want to open with this map. This is the map that I will sort of talk about. It's sort of highlight different aspects of how human and machine can coexist. The term cyborg itself is very interesting because it's actually a scientific term. Many of you might have heard of Cyborg from science fiction. The recent movie, right? Justice League has a character that is a part human, part machine, right? But Cyborg itself come from a scientific research by Manfred Klein, Nathan Klein, who think of the new way that human and machine can coexist to better support one another. And today I will indeed talk about Cyborg and different areas that it can really sort of support us. The first area that I want to talk about is how this idea of cyborg can really help us stay healthy, or even make us more healthy than ever through closed loop wearables. And what do I mean by this is that we are living in an era where we have technology that can understand the context. Professor Weersak worked on biosensor, right? Biosensor allow us to better understand ourselves by having access to biological information that our body is constantly, producing or streaming, right? But the context itself is not enough because context doesn't do anything, right? Information, yeah, it's nice to have, nice to know. But, in order for you to stay healthy, you need to be able to use context or information from the body to be able to intervene. If you're sick, right? If you have biomarkers that show that you're sick, or Professor Weersak talked about stress or auto condition earlier, you want to be able to provide feedback, like doctor should be able to diagnose, give you treatment, do different things based on the information coming from the body, and together be able to create this kind of feedback loop that connect the context and intervention together. Right, so these context and intervention can lead to sort of real-time assistant. System can create condition for the body to stay healthy and could potentially even enhance our capabilities. If you zoom in to a person, there are two types of signal that are being produced by a human body. One type of signal is electrophysiological signals. And sorry, I always speak very fast because we have so many information to talk about here. If you have any questions, feel free to interrupt me or ask me anytime.
Okay.
Yeah, cool. So the first kind of signal, as I mentioned, electrophysiological signals. These are signals that are electrical, as the name suggests. These are like, brain activity, muscle activity, EMG, electromuscle activity, EDA, skin conductivity, which, can be used to understand, the level of arousal and so on. These are, the type of signal that are being used today by wearable devices, right? Your heart rate monitoring smartwatch can already, have the same sort of performance as, EKG device in the medicine in the hospital, right? So these current wearable are already tapping into electrophysiological signals. It's already measuring your heart rate, respiration rate, brain activity, and so on. But that's and the media has been working on this since 1995. Right, so these are the pioneers of wearable technologies. They become, the creator of like, VR headset, smartwatch, and so on. Right, this is what they look like back then. It's very clunky, very big. At that time, they don't even have smartphones, so they need to wear this device with a laptop in their pocket. Right, so all these sensors and everything are connected to a laptop or a huge computer that they carry around. But as you know, technology becomes smarter and smaller, so we all have this kind of, easy to wear wearables today, right? But electrophysiological signals is just one half of the story. The second half of the story is biochemical signals. This is what Professor Weersak also specialized in, and he's a leader in this area for Southeast Asia, right? Electrophysiological signal give you signal that show you how the body sort of rapidly adapt to different stimulus. But biochemical signals, can show you if you're sick, if you are gene expression, what kind of gene expression is going on at the moment, what kind of metabolism do you have, and so on. So these are slow response signal and are more difficult to monitor real time. Your wearable device today cannot measure gene expression, cannot measure stress level by looking at cortisol, or cannot measure if you have COVID or not, right? You need to have a more complex biological assay in order to get that, right? So in my work at MIT Media Lab, I'm trying to think about how can we like tap into that biological signal and create, devices that can leverage these two signals together, electrophysiological and biochemical signals. And I work in the context of space exploration, especially because, in space, you can become more experimental, right? And there's more funding in that area also. People always ask me like, why do you want to do that? And when I say, oh, I'm doing it for astronaut or for future space exploration, and people are like, okay, cool, now I understand, right? So here I would like to present two research prototypes that we developed. And these are sort of the early prototype that demonstrate how can we connect biomarkers with, auto form of wearable computing. One device will be looking at saliva biomarkers. It's a device that clip to your mouth and continuously sample saliva. And another one will look at what happened, when we can intervene at the molecular level by allowing the body to be able to produce medicine itself, right? So in the first project, we call it wearable lab on the body. As the name suggests, we want to put some laboratory process on the human body. And this can be achieved by looking at ways that we can, sample from the body, right? People might become more familiar with this kind of method during COVID because you are constantly doing COVID testing, right? You're taking swab from your mouth, from your nose, from different part of your body, because this area, is the area where biomarkers are secreted, right? And inside the biomarkers, there are electrolytes, hormone, enzyme, antibodies, different kind of biomarkers that you can look at. And especially in saliva, you can look at biomarkers that are the signal for depression, which is huge in modern society. People are depressed and have mental health issue. You can look at fatigue, health failure, potential for health failure, diabetes, and yes, of course, periodontal diseases, right? So what we want to explore in this case is, we want to see if we can make a device that can do this sort of liquid handling continuously. So, a device that, sit close to your mouth and constantly taking saliva out and put it on biosensor. Here, this is what the device looks like. It has a tube that go into the mouth, constantly sort of taking the saliva out and put it on paper-based sensor. And then behind the device, there is a tiny RGB sensor that can read the colorimetric reaction that happened on the paper-based sensor, and then can sort of calculate into the concentration of biomarkers, right? And many of you that work in biosensor know that these paper-based sensors are always, one-time use, right? Because once the reaction happened, it cannot be reversed. What we did in this case, we do some sort of engineering solution. We move the sensor up and we roll it, so we can get a new sensor and do a different readout. This is a way that we can achieve sort of a pseudo continuous reading. And the platform, the device that we have is a prototype to demonstrate that in the future, based on the thing that you want to measure, you can integrate it into the device, similar to how iPhone, you can integrate different app into iPhone. We try to, imagine what happened if you can integrate different sensor into this kind of biodigital devices. And this allow us to be able to look at different biomarkers. This is sort of the concentration to based on RGB value. So then based on what kind of sensor you put in, you can sort of roughly estimate the concentration by converting the RGB value into the concentration. During COVID, I actually wear this device and we were able to collect some information. And this is really interesting because, I measure these different things from like the aggregate protein, glucose, ketone, pH, calcium, over, the day, right? And based on different activity, I can see how these different biomarkers have changed over time. After drinking orange juice, you can see the glucose spiking, or after I brush my teeth for some reason, I see an increase in pH and so on. So this is really interesting, right? This information, right now may not seem relevant, may not be that interesting, but imagine if you can capture this over a period of time, and especially if you can lay on top of it a behavioral data, right? What is really cool about digital devices is that it can give you behavioral data, right? Our device sit on top of the mouth. So you're eating, you're drinking, you are doing different kind of thing. We can sort of guess what activity you do by training the machine learning model on this accelerometer. So our device has accelerometer, which is a sensor that can measure movement, right? If you're eating something, we can detect sort of the pattern in the acceleration of the mouth. And we can use that on top of the biosensor. So if you see increase in glucose and you see that the person is eating something, you can make a calculation suggesting that, oh, this spike from glucose might come from food rather than, increase in the blood glucose, for example, right? This is what I'm talking about when I said, the combination of bio and digital coming together, right? This will allow you to have a more complete data of a person. You have digital information, you have biosensor information, and hopefully we can use this to be able to, create a feedback loop where we can intervene, right? If the device say that you're sick, then maybe it can recommend you go to the doctor or even prescribe medicine for you, right? Yeah, there is a version of this right now that happened at Harvard and MIT, where they, look at, similar ideas as us, and they are doing it for COVID. So a face mask that contain biosensor. So when you, everyone, right, during COVID wear masks, it would be nice if the mask can tell you whether you get COVID or not, right? I think this work is recently published in Nature Biotech also, where they embed this kind of like DNA and RNA based sensor on the flat surface so that you can actually do the readout on the device itself. But, the reading, right, the sensor is just one step, one part of the process. We at the Media Lab, we always look at new possibility, new crazy ideas. And for us, what is also really interesting is this idea of closed loop health intervention, right? You might have heard of insulin pump, right? With, diabetes patient, they're wearing this kind of insulin pump. You always need to fill in insulin, and, the device can read the level of insulin from the blood, the level of glucose from the blood, and then be able to pump the right amount of insulin to the person, right? This is a cool idea. It's really highlighting the idea of cyborg, right? Human machine coming together. But we want to push this idea further and think about, not just having, insulin that you store in a device. We want to ask, what if we can actually produce the molecule on the body ourselves? This is an ongoing work that we are doing with NASA to look at ways that we can produce medicine on the human body. So, for diabetes patient, right, they cannot produce insulin on the body itself. There are other molecules that we need, right? Not just insulin, but, many of you might have already drink coffee this morning, right? Caffeine is one of the molecules that can stimulate the nervous system, allow you to be more alert and allow you to, function properly in maybe learning environment or work environment, right? Can boost productivity. There are also other molecules like serotonin or medicine that we need to take, because these are molecules that our biological body cannot produce them or produce them in the sufficient concentration when we need them, right? Right now, many of these molecules are being produced by bacteria, which we, call them biological factory. We engineer the bacteria to have genes from the human body so that, the bacteria can, express that gene and produce that molecule for us. Right now, there are many molecules actually that we are producing with bacteria. These are just a short list of them, right? We are producing, peptide-based medicine. We are producing, enzyme. We're producing neurostimulant and so on. And normally this kind of production happen in the large scale, biofactory or in the large scale manufacturing factory, right? But we at the Media Lab, we want to think about crazy, future where we can actually grow these bacteria in a wearable device, so that we can, produce them on the human body, Imagine, right? This is Media Lab 1995. They're thinking about putting computer on the human body, which is a crazy idea back then. Now we want to take, the wearable become, now it's everywhere, right? We want to think about the next step, which is thinking about integrating bacteria on the human body. And here, another kind of a related project. During COVID, one of my thesis reader, Professor George Church from Harvard, he actually doing a DIY COVID vaccine. So he was expressing, some of the protein that is used in the COVID vaccine himself at home. He had a small lab at home. But, this is really highlighting the idea of decentralized bioproduction, where you can actually produce biologics, biomolecules anywhere, even on the human body. So in this case, we make a prototype of a wearable bioreactor. devices that will contain bacteria on the human body. The way that this system works is that we have a microfluidic system that allow us to grow bacteria inside, and these bacteria are being controlled using optogenetic system. Optogenetic system is a system that was invented at MIT many years ago, which is basically using light to trigger gene expression. So the researcher engineer a photoreceptor from algae actually into bacteria and other organisms. So when you when this photoreceptor is triggered by light, it can trigger downstream pathway. So in this case, we trigger the downstream pathway to produce different medicine. We demonstrated with 3 different fluorescent molecules like GFP, BFP, and IFP. These are like example molecule that we produce. And on this graph, you can see when we trigger with blue light, green light, and red light, we actually producing different molecule even in the same bacteria, right? Of course, the biological system is not completely on and off. You see some leakage over there, but it's really highlighting the idea that biological system can be controlled like a software. You enter one command and it do one thing. You can enter another command and it do another thing, right? So this is the cool thing about this. And what we also show is that we encapsulate these bacteria inside the wearable reactor. And then we show that we can actually see the growth inside this wearable device on the human body. We are working with NASA. This is a long-term project to think about ways that we can integrate this on the astronaut spacesuit. So maybe in the future, astronauts will have wearable device that can produce medicine for them as they travel into space. And this, really bring the story, full circle. You have device that can sense, information from the body. Now you can produce the intervention and then deliver it back to the human body, right? We believe that this is not just for space, but as you see, space technology will become more democratized and have impact on people on Earth. Imagine your smartwatch 5 or 10 years or even 20 years from now, be able to produce medicine. So maybe you have a video call with the doctor and say, hey, you need that molecule. Let me activate that on your wearable device, and that device can produce molecule for you, right? That's the vision that we are working toward. I was privileged to actually test this closed loop system in the zero gravity flight. This is me, flying in the zero G. We were testing, the both system together in the zero G flight. This was really cool to test how the device work in the zero gravity, which is, the space-like environment. And we are doing more and more evaluation with this type of work. And this is particularly exciting because now we're entering the era where we have civilian astronaut, right? Not just astronauts that are trained by NASA for years and years of training, but astronauts that will be like space traveler or space a tourist that can go into space anytime, right? This is really interesting and exciting for us. And yeah, I want to add this slide here because all this might sound like crazy science fiction story, but as you see here, right, many of the things that happen in sci-fi tend to get developed into things that we're using right now. You see these are like the picture on the top are from science fiction Star Trek, right? You see actually very interesting, right? The character Captain Picard, right, from Star Trek, is actually in the same pose as Steve Jobs, right? He was using iPad, which is something that we all use right now in today's society, right? Or like these characters that wear like wearable device, now it's become something that we are become more and more used to, right? So I would encourage everyone that are working in research to not just think about incremental work, but look at inspiration from sci-fi, from the future, and do something amazing with it, right? Of course, research takes time. The prototypes that I talk about are not perfect. They still need time to mature into technology that we can use in daily life, but we are taking the first step into that vision. So the second half of my work, I would like to focus on the opposite of what I just talked about. Previously, I talked about the integration of bio and digital coming together, right? Bio, the genes, the growth, the organism, becoming more like digital system where we can read signal from biological system, right? And we can control them with electrical system, like we can shine light to them and then tell them what to produce. And now on the opposite side, I want to talk about digital system becoming more like biological system. When computers start to look like us and behave like us, That is the second half of this talk. I would focus on the area of AI. Now we have AI technology that can be a digital clone, can be a twin of us, right? Many of you might have heard of this as deepfakes, or the use of AI to recreate human talking or human doing different things. Many times in the news, people talk about this as, you know, like a disaster, right? A problem to society, like this technology gonna ruin us forever. But we recently published a paper in Nature Machine Intelligence talking about the opposite story of that, where we can use AI to generate virtual human that can allow us to support, you know, personalized learning and well-being. And this paper is one of the most read paper in Nature Machine Intelligence right now. It had like 14,000 reads. So if you're interested in this, feel free to check it out. What we present in this paper essentially is a pipeline that allow you to take different kind of information to be able to generate a realistic looking virtual human, right? You might see some delay because of the Zoom, but these are like video of characters. Maybe I should optimize for, yeah, this, great, cool. Yeah, so yeah, what's really interesting about this is that this virtual human, right, that can be generated with AI with the high level of realism, and we can do different things with it, right? Yeah, and we also release this as an open source also that many people are using. What we are interested in exploring is how we can use these AI generated characters to support, you know, medicine and learning, two areas that are particularly interesting to me. And now we're going to move on to the area of learning, right? The idea of learning, I think, is really important. We are all in the learning environment, right? I'm a student, many of you are in learning environment, and learning is very important. Let me see if I already shared an audio. Okay, cool. How can we use AI to make us learn better? Imagine in the future, you can learn from any character you want. You can learn physics from Einstein.
Today, we will learn about quantum mechanics.
Or if you don't
It is
like
the
Einstein, you can learn from
Today,
Michael.
we will learn about quantum mechanics.
Today, we will learn about quantum mechanics. It is the description of the behavior of matter and light in all its details and, in particular, of the happenings on an atomic scale.
These are the same lessons, you know, but are delivered by different characters that are generated by AI. So imagine you want to learn from anyone, you can just use our algorithm to just, you know, put the lesson, and then boom, you have an instructor giving that lesson, right? This is really powerful. And sorry for some of you see sort of the delay. It's because of Zoom, but in person, if you see this, you can actually really see the character like speaking and delivering that content very naturally. We did a study comparing what happened when you actually are learning from a character that you like. For example, many of you might like Elon Musk, right? He's like a hero for many of a student right now, compared to a control character, which is, you know, we completely make him up, the character on the right, right? So we generate two characters giving the same online lecture. So yeah, they'll talk about vaccine and so on. And what is real, and yeah, participants were informed that they are learning from a fake character, even though yeah, they're very realistic. We tell participants that this is not real Elon Musk and this is not real person teaching you. These are AI generated characters that are giving you the lesson. And both of them have the same slide, have the same content, have the same voice, give the same exact lecture. But what we found is that the learning motivation varies significantly based on, you know, the character that the person, you know, like. If you really admire Elon Musk, you have a high learning motivation in the same lesson as the other character. And this is with 134 participants. We recently published this work in IEEE Frontier Education, so you can check it out also. And we see this constantly or consistently in across domain that we measure in terms of learning motivation and learning experience. So even though it's a fake character, but if you like that character or you admire that character, your learning experience and learning motivation will increase significantly, right? And we test this with larger number of participants. And it's really exciting because it's really showing us that in the future, we will have personalized learning experience where you can learn from any character, anyone in the world, right? And sometimes, you know, the learning itself doesn't come from other people, sometimes it's best to learn from your own self, right? And this is also another area that we look at, which is the idea that, well, not that we can just use AI to generate auto character. You can also use AI to recreate yourself, but in different way. I can use AI to make a younger version of me, a female version of me, an older version of me, a more masculine, a more feminine, a more progressive, a more conservative, different version of yourself, right? And I was particularly interested in three-headed dragon in the movie Godzilla, right? There's a dragon with three heads that is very powerful. And one question that I think about is like, can you make better decision if you have multiple AI that exists on the same body as you, right? And these AI are trained on your own personal data. In this case, I trained this different AI with my social media data. And what they can do is that they can interpolate into the future, you know, what Professor Weersak would be like 10 years from now. We can train it on his current social media data. We can also look back into the past and look at what Professor Weersak like 5 or 10 years ago if he was on Facebook at that time, right? And we can use this data to actually create a virtual clone of that person. So I can generate a version of me, you know, an old version of me doesn't like technology at all, which is, you know, very different from a younger version of me that really like technology. You can ask like, how about school? None of my, neither the future version or the younger version of myself like school, right? And what about research, right? My future version of myself really like research, really interesting. So this is really showing a new paradigm of human-machine integration, where AI is no longer an external body or external entity, but it's something that are trained personally on your own data. And maybe before you make critical decision about what to do next, you may need to have a Zoom call, but not with someone else, but different version of you. You know, imagine in the future, on the Zoom call, you have like younger, older, more masculine, more feminine, more progressive, more conservative version of you that show up and have decision, right? And this is really, really powerful when we think about sort of human AI interaction. And one thing that we also look at, my colleague and I also look at what happened when these AI generated characters can also show us the ideal version of ourselves, you know, the version of ourselves that we want to become. In this case, we recently published a paper also on what happened if you generate a version of you that can give a speech confidently, right? You know, we look at Obama, Oprah, many amazing people who give, you know, speech very confidently, right? And we want to copy them. We want to be able to, you know, download that skill to us. And what we do in this case is we deepfake you into be able to speak like Obama, which is amazing, or be able to deepfake you into be able to speaking like Oprah, or on this video, this is AOC, which is a famous politician who speak, you know, very confidently. My colleague and I, we deepfake participant into be able to speak like that character, right? You can see, you know, my friend on the left, you know, get deepfake to be able to speak like this person. And what we found is that the person, after they see themselves speaking confidently, have a lower amount of stress when they need to give a speech, and also have a higher level of confidence when they also need to do the speech also. And we see this effect more strongly in the female participant, which is really interesting. Yeah. And not just us, there are many research actually that look at what happened when you embody different characters in sort of the virtual environment. The study on the left by Professor Mel Slater, who look at what happened when you embody Freud, the psychologist, and give yourself an advice. So in the VR, you wear goggles, you become Freud, and then you need to give advice to yourself. People tend to give better advice when they are someone else giving the advice, whether compared to being themselves, right? And on the right, it's also a really interesting study. They have participants embody Einstein, right? And people have increased cognitive performance tasks and also have decrease in age bias. So, you know, we might wonder why this is happening, and it's really similar to the placebo effect in medicine, right? When you're just taking like fake medicine and then you still see the curing effect, because the body and the expectation plays a significant role, and the psychology plays a significant role in your performance. If you're biased toward believing that you can do certain thing, you tend to be able to do that also. And Professor Viesak used to tell me that if you think that your experiment gonna fail, it's gonna fail. But if you like have confidence in doing that, then it tends to lead to better result, right? So this tool will allow people to be able to sort of embody a different version of themselves, or embody different characters in virtual space, which is really, really powerful. One thing that I would like to mention also is that, right now, a lot of people are thinking about this AI character, virtual reality, metaverse, and so on, right? These are like trendy ideas. These are amazing things that people are talking about. But I want to also encourage you to think about what happened in the past also. This is an early project from Media Lab in 1983, using AI to make a character, right? You can see it's very low resolution, very glitchy, right? But the idea was already there. And if you look at this, right, technology capabilities always increase. Now we have better technology to make something very similar, but with higher resolution, with lower and faster computational capability. So everything will get better, no matter what area you work on. Everything will get better over time, right? Technologies tend to get better. But the thing that is really interesting also is that human capability doesn't really catch up, right? When technology is getting better, many times it doesn't actually augment our ability. Many times technology surpass our capability. Like right now, we are at the point, right now we're at the point where we cannot tell the fake character from the real character anymore, right? So what I would encourage you to all think about is, as you make technology better or making fundamental discovery in the technology itself, think about what human and technology can do together, decision, health, and so on, because otherwise technology gonna surpass our capability and then we'll just leave human behind, right? And yeah, it's a really important thing that we want to think about. So now I want to end with this kind of question: what happened when human and AI work together? And I would like to give an example in the idea of decision making or co-decision making, right? Many times, as I mentioned, people think about human versus machine. Can human beat machine, or can machine beat human? But what I think is more interesting is this kind of idea of symbiosis. The idea that we can design sort of a system that leverage the best of both worlds, right? We know that from psychology, right, the thinking process, there are two thinking process. This is based on the work by Daniel Kahneman, who is a Nobel Prize in economics. He studied human cognitive processes, and he found that there are two types of processes going on. System one, fast thinking, error prone, but can deliver the message very quickly. And the system two, which is, a more deliberative, slower, more conscious, effortful. This is the type of thinking that, tend to lead to better result, right? And what is happening today in our society is that we are bombarded by social media, by advertisement, by politicians, by fake news, by information that gets us excited or crazy and thinking, but lead to wrong and poor decision, because we are not really engaging with the critical thinking, right? So in this project, in this final project that I would like to mention, we create wearable device that's trying to stimulate critical thinking. So using AI not to replace our thinking, but using AI to support human decision making, right? So in this project, we train a machine learning model to be able to look at information that you are receiving, whether it's an information without evidence, information that are stated as an empty claim, like this exists because nothing, or you should believe in this special medicine, it can cure everything, right? Which has no evidence to support it, right? We use this AI to support the person, right? So, someone please mute yourself. Thank you. Yeah. So in this case, what happened is that we give an AI to a person, and we want to see if AI can augment decision making. So first, here on the left, right, we have control, which is people making decision on their own. They are asked to evaluate statement. Some of them are stated with evidence, some of them is without evidence, and you can see that they cannot really evaluate whether things is a good argument or not. They cannot evaluate like poor information from great information at all. When we give AI as an assistant to the person, what is really interesting here is that if the AI give explanation, right? If the AI can explain to you why the AI think that this is an information that is trustworthy, or why is this information make sense, people are not willing to trust the AI. You see, in the non-explainable AI, in the middle is when the AI say this is good information, this is bad information, without giving explanation, right? It's actually not very different from the control at all. But when the AI can explain to participants, then when we see people start to be able to tell when the statement is stated with evidence, right? So as you're thinking about human AI interaction, and we see this in different measurement that we look at, right? So this is very, very similar. So what I want to highlight here is that as you imagine AI being integrated into different aspects of our life, from decision making like this, where you are looking at information and trying to see whether this is a trustworthy information or not, to like medical information, right? If the doctor need to do diagnostics, or if the lawyer need to make a case for something, or if you need to make critical decision, right? It's not just that you can stick AI into a person, it will improve the person right away. You need to understand what kind of ability the AI need to have in order to increase that person's capability. In this case, for reasoning or for decision making, the AI need to be able to provide explanation or rationale for how it come up with the answer to the person. And that when we see improvement in terms of decision making tendency, right? The reason why this happened is because human, we tend to follow our intuition, and sometimes that's a great idea, right? Intuition get us into good decision and amazing things. But sometimes when you have biases, or when you have like fixed mindset on something, that things need to always be like this or things need to be like that, you automatically make decision without thinking about it, right? What AI can come into play here is that it can challenge that assumption that you have by starting to give a second opinion, or giving a conflicting information, and that will start to engage your critical thinking process, right? So you should not use AI to replace your thinking, but use AI in this sort of human machine symbiosis way, where human and AI can sort of make decisions together. This is, I think, the future that we'll see more and more. And we want AI to sort of support the area that human is not good with. And then AI is never perfect, so human always need to be the one making the final decision, right? So yeah, this different area that we talk about here, from to learning, health, medicine, and so on. This is very important, right? And especially as people thinking about the next frontier of human endeavor, right? From space exploration to like metaverse or whatever that means. This is the thing that we're gonna see more and more, right? All of these are possibilities, but we also need to think about challenges also, right? These technology are very powerful. They can do many things. They can make our life very different from today, but it also can present with the challenge also. Yeah. Technology itself is neither good nor bad, right? It's one of the things that Marvin Kranzberg, who is a philosopher of technology, say, you really need to understand in what context you can really deploy technology and it can lead to positive impact, and in what scenario it can lead to like a negative outcome, right? So I think this is really, really important. So as we look at all these aspects, right, from stay healthy, make decision better, explore different version of ourselves, learn better, we should think more about like how we can put all this together and create the future of cyborg, the future that technology can augment our capabilities, right? And with that, I would like to end with this sort of philosophy of mine, that when you look at things that seems impossible, it's the opportunity for us to look at it and say, hey, that seemed impossible, right? Let's make it possible. So then you can do something amazing about the future. And with that, I'll end with my favorite thing, which is a cyborg dinosaur. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. And the cyborg dinosaur is so adorable. I would like to encourage all the audience here today. Okay, first of all, maybe I would like to breathe first, Pat, because during your speech, I was trying to internalize everything because it was so quick, so many information, and let me take a breath first. So probably I would encourage all the audiences to give your questions. You can either put it in the chat box or maybe just ask him directly. I'm sure there are so many things that we can discuss, and also maybe Ajahn Wirasak also, because I'm sorry, I'm gonna switch to Indo real quick. Bagi Bapak Ibu, Profesor, Dokter sekalian yang memiliki pertanyaan bagi para pembicara kita pagi hari ini, kami persilahkan untuk langsung menuliskan pertanyaannya di kolom chat atau bisa ditanyakan langsung kepada para pembicara, karena Pat, berdasarkan penjelasan dari Pat tadi mungkin banyak sekali hal yang bisa kita diskusikan antara integrasi antara AI, virtual reality, dan teknologi ke dalam dunia kedokteran. Dan Prof. Wirasak juga merupakan ahli dalam bidang biosensor dan nanosensor. Okay, so I am particularly interested in the loop that you were talking about. You know, that in the future, maybe our body can decide what we need for ourselves, right? And actually, without us even realizing it, it's already happening, right? Sometimes our smartwatches will tell us, okay, you need to stand up, you need to walk, because you've been sitting for too long. So I don't think that if you're saying we need like 10, 20 years, I don't think it will take that long, actually, Pat. I think it will happen like much sooner. And also, yeah, I was watching your TED Talk where you successfully identify the factors like suicidal thoughts, and then you can identify those people and give them help before it's too late. Well, we know that we see in our environment nowadays, the level of people that get depression, mental disorders, borderline personality disorder, it's increasing a lot. So maybe you can elaborate a little bit more about that?
Yeah, for sure. So the project that was mentioned earlier was, you know, that's one of the one project that I work on, which is, you know, to use AI to identify biomarkers related to suicide, right? So many people kill themselves, and, you know, which is really sad, and it's a serious issue that we need to do something about it. So in that project, what we're trying to show is the ability to use AI to be able to detect, you know, messages that these people will post before they commit suicide, because many times they would like to, you know, they will have like a final message, or even before that, they can, you know, say things that can, you know, be monitored and viewed as concerning, right? Many of them would say something like, "Oh, the world is so like it's so bad, so sad. I want to die. I want to kill myself." Even before they do that. And what is really sad is that, you know, people don't know how to respond to these messages, or worse, people don't see these messages at all, right? It's just going to silence. But with social media technology, right, we can use AI to actually monitor some of these messages and reach out to people even before they do something, right? So yeah, we have done, we work with, you know, Help Lifeline, you know, that, you know, do the intervention, right? So we develop tool that, you know, become open source and people can use to sort of look at these and support people with mental health at risk. So what is really interesting here is that, you know, right now when you think about health, it has many components. You have, you know, the body, right, that are producing biomarkers. You have cognitive processes that are, you know, generating language. You are typing. You are doing different things, right? You can monitor, you know, language markers, right, linguistic marker from text that you communicate. You can monitor stress. You can monitor depression from, you know, linguistic and behavioral data. You can look at the biological also, right, as Professor Wirasak mentioned, right? All of these, I think, will allow us, you know, it opened up new possibility to do more holistic health monitoring in a way that we cannot imagine before. And as people become more and more online, you know, it's also a great things because we have more data, but it's also concerning because people become more separated from one another, right? Like during the pandemic, that's when the suicide rate, spike, and it's really concerning because these people need like a relationship, they need intimacy, they need in-person communication, right? So as we develop technology, we should not forget this fundamental human quality also. Yeah.
Sure. This makes me also think if we can use it in the other way. I'm a fan of true crime stories, true crime channels. So probably I've seen in a lot of these cases that these perpetrators, sometimes they post online about their thoughts. Maybe there's also a way to recognize whether these people have a tendency to actually perform the crime, so maybe we can somehow detect it before it even happens, just a thought. So yeah, anyway. There's a question. We have a quick question. I think from one of the doctors, one of the staff, Dr. Ruli. He wanted to know that thank you for the outstanding lecture, first of all, and what do you think about precision medicine in AI? So nowadays we step towards personalized medicine, precision medicine, gene therapy, cell therapies, and what do you think? Maybe this question is both Pat and Ajahn Virasak, maybe.
Okay, Professor Virasak, you can take it first.
Great.
Actually, last time I paid a visit in Marang, I talked to your colleagues. Marang is Ishawa, the center of the tertiary educations. One thing, you have several universities and students come over the archipelagos of Indonesia. My question is, when they move into Marang, I think the thing that would change them, that is the dietary.
Yeah.
See.
So my question is, what's that
microbiota?
Yeah. If you study of them, so that means you are going to forward into the personalized eventually.
I see.
Yeah. That's the one thing that it can be personalized. And perhaps Patty can share you the idea, the work we have done together about the personalized medicine. In case of we using the yellow chain of the white eyes or jaundice symptom represent to the progressive of the diseases that relate to the pancreas, liver, or whatever. Those kind of things we can use it. It's the combination between the image analysis with machine learning or AI. Perhaps Patty can share about this. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So the project that Professor Virasak is talking about, it's actually one of the ongoing research that we are doing with also another company in Thailand called AIS, which is like a service provider in Thailand, and they are interested in supporting the use of mobile platform to support, like there's a thing called mobile health, right, which is to increase the access to medical equipment via mobile phone, right? And the project that we were just talking about is to use the smartphone to be able to take the picture of the the patient eye, right? Patient eye can reveal many conditions about themselves, about the internal health, right? That's how the doctor look at the eyes and see, especially with this condition related to like liver and jaundice, right? The color of the eye might change to yellow, which came from bilirubin, which is secreted if the liver is not performing at the full capacity or not performing healthily, right? So you can look at the color of the eye as a biomarker for many of these health conditions. And what is problematic in the current ways that people are diagnose this is that the patient need to go to the hospital for the doctor to see the eye, and then then it go back, right? Which is take a lot of time, and doctor have more better things to do, right? If you can automate this process, it could help the doctor, free up some time for the doctor to do and treat more serious condition, and also help the patient to be able to do this sort of follow up at home, right? So we have been developing this smartphone app that allow patient to take a picture of their eye and be able to send that to the doctor for the follow up rather than in-person visit. Right. This is one way to think about the use of mobile platform to increase. Yeah.
Sorry, is it quantifiable? I mean, is it quantifiable?
Yeah. So that's what we are doing right now with a medical school in Thailand. So they are like taking a picture of using the smartphone app and quantifying it with a blood sample so that we can correlate the color of the eye with the actual bilirubin in the blood, which can be really impactful. Right. So that's one.
Right,
Yeah.
it's really interesting, and I totally agree with Ajahn Wirasak on this, because now we know that gut microbiota is not just gut microbiota. Previously, we always hear like you are what you eat, and it's entirely true, because now we know that this gut microbiota like control the immune response towards pathogens and everything, and we also have the gut-brain axis, which actually works together, and we're doing some research on that. It's really interesting. Also, I think this eye. I really hope we can collaborate further in the future, because some of my collaborators in Siriraj Hospital in Thailand, we are trying to use the retinal image to predict whether this person might have Alzheimer's disease in the future, and how severe it would be, like the prognosis of this patient. So we train the machine to recognize a lot of these images so they can predict how it would be in the future. So I think, right. So we have another question here from Dr. Ari, another medical doctor from our faculty. And he's asking like, this field is very new for me, as I'm sure is most of us here. How about the disadvantage or the backdrop of this? It's related more to the social ethics that comes with the development of advanced technology. Probably both of you could also respond to that.
Yes, definitely. Before that, I want to add a little more comment on the precision medicine. I think, the idea of precision, I think it's not just going to happen in medicine, right? What I talk about today is also in learning and in any area, right? With the increase in technology adoption in every aspect of our life, everything will be more connected, and that level of precision will come from the flow of information from one place to another. Your smartphone or your smart wearable will know your metabolism. It can send to the food recommendation. It can send to your doctor. It can send to any platform, right? And all of these can sort of self-regulate and if you use it well, it can it can promote like healthy behavior and so on, right? If you talk about microbiome, right? You can look at right now there's a lot of research that show that dietary choices can lead to improvement or decline of microbiome. There's one study that I really love that showed that when people migrate from Southeast Asia to the US, their gut microbiome become less diverse, and that's when they become more obese. And that is driven by the food choice also, because in Southeast Asia, right, we eat a lot of like fermented food, we eat food with a lot of bacteria in it. But in the US, everything is like processed food, like fast food, hamburger, things like that. It decreased gut microbiome, and that lead to a malfunction in some of the metabolic pathway that regulate your food digestion and so on, right? So if you think about this, like food recommendation, which is an AI type of work, right? Right now we have, food delivery during COVID. Like I use a lot of food delivery platform because I cannot go outside to eat, right? What AI recommend for you for that meal affect your microbiome, affect your, other health. Like you talk about gut-brain interface, right? It can affect your cognitive processes. So when everything is interconnected, right, you need to think about health in a new way, not just as what medicine I'm going to give to the patient, but what kind of behavior, what kind of AI is part of that lifestyle. So I think the level of precision will come from this interconnectedness of data, machine, and devices and sensor. Everything will
personalized, which is still Yeah, that's great. Okay,
Yeah.
question before
Yeah.
about the social and
And
ethics.
yeah, one study that we are working on, I'm at San Francisco right now, and one of the projects that we are doing with Stanford, with my colleague at Stanford Medicine, is to look at what happened when the AI give wrong medical advice to people. Because one thing that we observe in the recent years is that people tend to overly trust the AI. You know, they follow the AI recommendation on YouTube, like what to watch next, what to buy next. People, you know, tend to follow AI because AI can learn what they like, what they have done before. And, you know, right now we have like I don't know if you follow the news, but there is a development in the area of large language model, which is a large machine learning model that are trained on, you know, large corpus of text information. And it can generate new sentences that are grammatically correct, that seems amazing. Like when you look at the text being generated from this model, like GPT-3 or Delta or, you know, Lambda from Google, it's almost like a human text. So we did an experiment where we use question that people post online to the doctor and use AI to generate the response to that. The response is almost indistinguishable from the real human doctor.
Okay.
That is, you know, blown our mind. And the problem is that this AI, even though it can generate the response that seems correct, sometimes it generates incorrect medical advice. You know, it generates something that sounds correct, looks amazing, but it has incorrect factual information. And what we try to see is how can we make sure that people don't fall for this kind of you know, AI when it gives wrong medical information. And it has to do with literacy. You know, we need to make sure that people have AI literacy so that they understand how the AI work and they don't just fall for any AI recommendation. You know, it also had to do with, you know, accessibility and, you know, equality, right? Some people don't even have access to this kind of technology at all. So every time that they see it, it's like new experience for them, versus some people that have more experience, right? That we, you know, make them immune to some of these conditions.
Right.
So we need to think about access to technology, like the project that Professor Virasak talked about, like the use of mobile phone as medical device. I think that is like a trendy area of research right now, where people are trying to hack, you know, like our smartphone has a really, you know, has a lot of capability, right? It has more computational power than Apollo 11 that go land on the moon, right? The smartphone itself is more smart than spacecraft that happened that make people go to the moon. So it should, you know, we should be able to use it for all kind of medical purposes, right? And I think the combination of, you know, medical school, engineering school, a researcher from different discipline will be able to make that happen.
More exposure and literacy about the AI is very mandatory, right? Tan Virasak, what do you think about this as a user of these technologies? Do you face like these problems, or what are your thoughts on the social, ethical problems of the advancement of technology?
Well, as a researcher, when I think of this kind of the negative impacts or the misreadings, what I try to do, that is I try to avoid to diagnose the patients. The digital science, it can be at the beginning for following up the patient rather to diagnose. That is the way to avoid one thing. And as a researcher as well, in terms of the looking at the biomarkers and predicted by the AI or machine learning, one thing we can do at the beginning, we might looking at the source of the lifestyle instead. And then the technology more advanced, and then according to the path he mentioned, the people literacies about the AI and things more. I think we can move on in real use. Yeah.
Right. So we need to balance it, right? Like the graph that Pat showed earlier. Yeah.
we can't confidence. Yes, we are going to for AI to diagnose those people step by step because human life. Yeah, anyway.
Yes, but probably for people who are not very immersed in that field, is I think it's normal because when we see in science fiction movies like Terminator or maybe the Love Death Robot on Netflix, we get really scared, we will be overpowered, and I think such kind of lectures is a very good thing. We have another question from Professor Saifur. He's the Vice Dean for Academics and Education and Research in our faculty. So 3 years ago, he received a grant actually from MIT, but he could not find like a partner. So maybe after this could be some follow-up maybe with Pat and maybe
yes.
I think so what are your suggestions? Do you have any ideas, maybe out of the box thinking, some ideas about molecular cardiology and AI? Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, so I mean, I think most of the people at MIT tend to be on the technical side. So normally when we work on medical related project, we collaborate with faculty at Harvard Medical School, which is our neighbor. And yeah, so I don't know much about molecular cardiology, but I would imagine like people at Harvard would be able to collaborate. And if you're interested in like on the technology side, I mean, depend on what problem you're interested in exploring. I might be able to recommend some people. Yeah.
Great. So maybe we can have some follow-up discussions after this then. All right. So we have another question from Dr. Master. Thank you for the very interesting presentation. I'm interested in your whole discussion, especially about the AI generated characters. Yes, that was one of my favorite parts also. In developing medical image diagnosis systems such as X-ray, MRI, CT scans based on deep learning using CNN or transformer, many data sets are needed for training it, right? So is it possible to develop AI generated human anatomy for the training process? I imagine you could get the question. So he has read a paper with a similar concept for an autonomous car training. So if it works with the autonomous car training, will it work for the human as well? And have you ever come across some research or some similar research on this? Because I think currently he's researching about this, about the deep learning models for diagnosis, and he is facing some difficulties to getting to the right path and maybe to get sufficient data sets for the training process of the AI.
Yes, this is a really great question. Thank you for raising this. It's actually one of the potential area that could be benefiting from this whole area of AI generated characters. There are two things I want to mention. First one is that there's a work by my colleague at MIT Media Lab in the Medical 0.0 initiative that have used sort of this generative model to actually do the digital staining of the sample. So imagine you have a sample, right, from a patient, and then you need to stain with different, dial and different process to see the actual, stain tissue so that you can do different diagnosis. So he was using, this model to actually digitally stain. So, you get a picture from a raw sample that under microscope or the sort of imaging system, and then the AI will do the coloring similar to how the staining process would happen. Right, so that is one research that he had done. This whole area, I think, is called synthetic data set, right? The use of AI to produce more data that you can use for doing other things. The problem that this might happen, people have done it in like self-driving car and so on. It used to with the current state of the art model, people tend to use it with like data set that are not super complicated, right? Like for self-driving car, right, you can just simulate like different trees on the street and house and so on. But with human anatomy, there are many details, right? So to get this right, I think it's really, really important. You need to have a lot of evaluation metrics of the output. To generate itself is not difficult, but to make sure that what you generate is representative of what you want to actually use it for, that is the challenging part. And many times this model will come up with things that seems correct, but are not correct in detail. because what this model trying to do, right, it memorized the pattern and then recreate it, but it might miss the detail, which I think could be the essential part of this, right? If you can generate data set easily, then it may not represent the patient or the condition at all. So I think that is the part that we need to be careful about. But as I said, this is a really exciting area of research, and it definitely need people with expertise in machine learning and expertise in that specific tissue or that specific type of imaging to work together. Is a really super exciting area. The keyword is the synthetic data set. Yeah.
I see. So maybe if there are any follow-up questions, please, would you like to come on mic and discuss directly? Or maybe it already answers the questions, gives some idea on how to proceed further. And I totally agree with you that this is not just an automobile, right? I mean, this is diagnosing patients, real human beings. Yeah. Dr. Masa, would you like to ask your questions or have some follow-ups to this?
Thank you for the answer, Mr. Pat. I'm so sorry, my English is not well.
Oh, no worries.
Maybe
no
worries. I can in Indonesia maybe, Dr. Aulia.
Sure, no problem.
I'm sorry. Terima kasih nanti buat bantuannya Dr. Aulia. Jadi yang saya tertarik sebenarnya tadi kan yang dibahas tentang GANs, yaitu Generative Adversarial Networks, di mana mengembangkan data sintetis menggunakan AI dengan GANs tadi. Tapi kalau di fisika medis itu kita juga mempelajari tentang koefisien atenuasi dan tanda kutipnya. Jadi setiap organ itu punya koefisien masing-masing. Jadi bagaimana potensi ketika kita mengembangkan data sintetis tidak menggunakan GANs saja, tapi juga menggunakan konsep dari fisika medis ini. Jadi antara dua gabungan dari combined methods antara GANs juga dengan konsep di fisika medis. Mungkin itu yang saya penasaran karena saya baca masih belum menemukan yang ke arah dua itu. Terima kasih Dr. Aulia.
Siap, Dr. Masep. Pelan-pelan. Saya kurang familiar dengan topik ini sehingga mungkin saya perlu mentranslate step by step supaya tidak lost in translation. So what he was trying to ask is that it's not enough to use the synthetic learning only. So you need to like integrate or combine some of the medical physics. Did I translate it correctly?
Yes.
Yeah, so the data set is still needed in this process, and it's taking a lot of time and a lot of effort to put them all together. So maybe you have had some experience or maybe some suggestions on how to proceed on this matter. I'm sorry. Saya menerjemahkannya betul kah? Mohon maaf, apakah?
Kurang lebih begitu Dr. Aulia. Karena jadi intersection antara computer vision, artificial intelligence engineer dan juga fisika medis, computational physical medics. Seperti itu kurang lebihnya.
Yeah, so there should be an intersection between computational and medical physics and yeah. Do you have maybe thoughts on this?
Yeah, so I think it is really interesting. So to generate the output, I think the different way to do it. If you use generative model, for example, GAN is one of the largest highly used model right now for this kind of task. GAN stands for Generative Adversarial Network, which is two AI model, one trying to generate, one trying to discriminate, and that's how they train. So the generative model will get better at generating an image, and the discriminative model will get at distinguishing whether this is a right image or not. Right. So if you want to generate a data set like this, you can fine tune the discriminative model by training it on the real anatomy image. Right. You can train it, and then it will be really good at telling whether this is a medical this is anatomy or not. Is this correct or not? And then the generative model will try to generate something that this discriminative model can no longer tell whether this is real or false. That's how this model can generate highly realistic output, right? It's the combination, it's the adversarial attack, not an attack, adversarial competition between the two models. So that would be one way to do it. So so you can encode all that medical physics or medical information into the discriminative model and then have the generative model try to beat it. Yeah.
Mungkin apakah bisa menjawab sedikit banyak menjawab pertanyaannya?
Iya, terima kasih Dr. Lia. Thank you, Mr. Pratt, for the answer.
Thank you.
So I hope this concept will make when we training or build some models based on CNN, on transformer, or maybe the other method for image processing, will more accurate with less of the patient data, because patient data, I think, is some of the difficulties from this research in my experience. So thank you for the suggestions.
I think I can share a bit about the data sets, which is maybe not sufficient. In this case, I think in the medical hospitals, things, everything has to be put digitized, all of that. Even the writing things, it's got to be digitalized. Eventually, if you have more data, which is in the form of digital, it can be easier for construct that data sets, I think. For the image, it's fine. For the others, diagnose, writing out, things like that. Yeah, really need it.
Does that answer the question?
Yes, thank you very much for the.
All right. Thank you very much. So we have one more question to Pak Agwin. Agwin is actually one of lecturer staff. He's not a medical doctor, but he's an engineer. So probably he would like to ask his question directly.
Sounds good.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Aulia. Thank you for Mr. Wirasak, Prof. Wirasak, and Mr. Pat. I'm interested in your paperwork about a wearable lab on body, but I have some questions about it. Is your biochemical paper base is a single use, or maybe you can use it for a long time? And the second, how do you get or retrieve the biomarkers or training data, so you can make a correlation between your receiving data with diagnose? Because in my experience in Indonesia, it's very difficult to make this work. I mean, we should make some ethics or another thing that very difficult to research with this field.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Pat.
Yeah, thanks for that question. So for the first one, the paper-based sensor that we use are all commercially available. So we did not invent any new paper-based sensor. We leverage from things that already exist out there. And most of the paper-based sensor are one-time use. That's why you need to have them in the row so that when it's used, then you switch to another one. That's sort of the approach that we were exploring. And your question about how do you actually get the correlation between the concentration and the colorimetric readout, that one is also based on the paper-based sensor that we get. Also, that has already been characterized. So we just basically put that into the device. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Mr. Pat.
I'm sorry. Another interesting point that he raised was here in the Southeast Asia, we are dealing with lots of paperwork just to do something. I think in his TED talk, Pat also once mentioned that you are very fortunate to work in a place where you can have crazy ideas and have people supporting you, which is might be different, right? So a little bit slightly different. Maybe Ajahn Wirasak has more experience on this.
Well, I grew up in Thailand, and Thailand, I think, is very similar to Indonesia. That it's very bureaucratic, and both of Southeast Asia, right? We know what we know, right? Yeah, and
maybe have some ideas on this.
Okay, Pat, you can start.
I think the trick is to find
out. You can reflect out.
Yeah, I think the trick is to find, people that believe in you, right? I found Professor Wirasak, who's like a great mentor, and he support me to do like all these crazy experiments. And then when I come to the US, right, I can be even more crazy and go even further, right? So even when I was in Thailand, I was fortunate to be able to discover, an open-minded mentor like Professor Vyasak here, and I think that I'm really impressed with the question and the whole session here. I hope I mean the session itself, like even the name, like jumping into the digital pond of reality text and AI, that's a very poetic and very powerful question. I never seen that in Thailand. Like people will never ask that kind of question. So I really applaud your university, and this department is really cool that you are doing this. I think yeah, I hope this presentation can inspire you to think about more crazier ideas, right? And it will take like 1 or 2 people to start, and then everyone else will follow. So yeah, if you want to do something crazy, then go for it, and Professor William can help you. Yeah.
So what do you think, Ajahn? Ajahn Vyasak, do you have some thoughts on this? Because maybe we encounter similar thing, and I know your free club is some kind of, that I mentioned, out of the box.
Luckily, I work with the kids, which is a young kid, for more than 20 years. So I know that the kids, they have the imagination. And I know that if they have imagines to do things, my experience teach me, if the kids, they have imagines, that means they are going to be creators.
Right.
And if your country, you want innovations, you need those people in imagine and creativity.
Exactly.
So that's why I just give them the challenging questions.
Right. Sometimes not only people with creativity, but also people who are lazy. Sometimes lazy people, they tend to invent something. It's just for myself, just for the daily lives. Yeah, because we always try.
But even in the real world.
So we have one question. This is I'm sorry, there's no name, but this is from the Department of Anatomy Pathology. The question is, thank you for the thought-provoking lecture. Following up on the topic of medical image analysis and AI, this is, I think, it's a very interesting topic for doctors. In the anatomic pathology, we mainly deal with tumor diagnostics. Do you have any experience or insights regarding the use of AI in the oncology or tumor diagnostic, and how to bring it to a larger scale setting, for example, the clinical settings, right? So currently we are still facing multiple barriers in researching this topic in Indonesia, such as the doubts of accuracy, the one that Pat also mentioned earlier, and the prediction of the EI, like people are worried, is it really accurate? Is it true? And what are your thoughts on this? And do you have like any suggestion on how to address these barriers?
Right. So I have three things to mention about this. This is a great question. Thank you for raising it. It's a really important question. So the first thing is that the social acceptability of AI tend to increase over time. In some country, like in the US, it's increased significantly. In some country, the adoption rate sort of tend to follow the acceptability. So once people start to accept it as like a normal thing in the hospital, then the adoption will become more exponential afterward. So there are many factors contributing to that, right? So one, science fiction is actually one way of introducing crazy technology to society. You have it show up in the movies, or you have it show up in TV show, and then people start to accept it, right? That's how smartphone start to penetrate. Also, you start to see people using it, and now everyone is using smartphone. I still remember the time when my parent was asking, like, why does the phone need to be smart? And then I went abroad, right, and then come back, and I went to the US, and then come back, and my parents already having like all smartphone. They don't even ask me, and I was like, wow, just one year and things change, right? So yeah, so that could happen. The second question about the accuracy is very important. That's why you need to have a human in the loop. There's a whole research on, human in the loop medicine, right? Which is how do you make sure that at the end it's the human that make the final decision. You need to use AI to support doctor, not to replace doctor, right? Because AI can make mistake and doctor are the one that can deliver information, can simplify, can communicate with patient. And medicine is more than just data. It's about treatment and healing, right? So it's about human aspect also. So you need to make sure that the AI is supporting the doctor. And I think one of the common mistakes that people do in in sort of AI for medicine is that they think about, oh, I'm going to make amazing AI first. I'm going to increase the accuracy, and then I'm going to introduce it to the doctor after I finish this research. That will be the last step of the process, right? And then many times doctor was like, we don't need that. Like that information is so obvious. Like for example, like help labeling certain thing or help, highlight certain area. Doctor was like, whatever the AI can do, I can already spot it. I need other kind of decision support tool. So it's really important to engage whoever you're working with in the process of the design of AI. I tend to, in the past, like, I'm going to make the best AI and I'm going to show it to the doctor and the doctor would love it and then use it. But it never like that. Doctor will always look very different, look at things different than you. You should not assume what is helpful for the doctor or for the practitioner. So the accuracy itself, you need to think about from the doctor perspective, what is helpful for them, right? In the project that Professor Risa mentioned with the mobile help that help. Oh, sorry.
I'm sorry.
Oh, no worry. Yeah, with the project that we mentioned with the mobile help thing, the doctors say that the diagnostics part is actually not the problem. The problem is the follow-up, because the follow-up is easy, but you need to do frequently, right? That's the insight that we get from the doctor that I never imagined, right? So talk to the doctor, talk to the people that you want to support before doing an AI project. That I think is the most important thing. And the last thing, yeah.
Please.
Go ahead.
No, please go on.
Oh, and the last thing about about how would you make sure that the accuracy, like if the AI make mistake, who is liable for this, right? I think at the end you need to have a medical guideline at the national level, maybe by the Ministry of Health or organization like that. That happened in the US, right? There is an organization that come up with the rule and guideline on how do you deploy AI at scale for medical application. There's like HIPAA that make sure that patient information are not being taken advantage of. There are like organizations that look at, how do you make sure that AI is transparent and can, if something happened, you can trace back to the reason behind it, right? So all of this is also part of policy and a bigger picture. But as a researcher, I think if you want to deploy it at scale, you should find a medical hospital to collaborate with. And I think they would definitely help with that. And I know that, there could be some bureaucracy, like in Thailand, it's also difficult to make with the doctor and hospital. But I think right now, things are changing. These doctors are also afraid, like, are they going to survive the metaverse? Like, are we going to lose our job or not? So they are always looking for technologies to collaborate with, right? Because they are also afraid that they will not be relevant in the future, right? So I think right now it's the perfect time to do this kind of work. Yeah.
Great. So to summarize this, first, we don't have to be worried because we need to keep open-minded because technology will be accepted eventually, right? And it's increasing. And the second one, this is a very insightful thought of you, is that create something that helps or supports the human and involve the human in the creation process. And the third one, also equally important, is the policy and the national regulation or even the protocol to make sure we don't stray away too far from that. And from the point of accuracy, maybe I would like to ask Ajahn Wirasak, since Ajahn is working on biosensors and nanosensors, like what are points to consider if you want to improve the accuracy, ensure the accuracy of our products? Maybe you could have some insights of this, and how do we overcome this limitation of fear that it might not be accurate enough or something like that?
in my experience, whatever we do, we need to have the more and more subjects to test, and then yeah, we got to go to the real cases eventually, and we are not going to manipulate the data or whatever. We have to be honest with our data eventually. And then if it's not, for example, we cannot get the sense back as we support is going to be for the real use. We have to improve our research. We have to improve our cases. But eventually, when you get things done, yeah, you have another regulations. You have to get through the FOA or whatever, the organizations, and then that's the things we make sure that when reached to the patients or the peoples, everything will be safe. Yeah.
Okay, so this has been like a very fruitful and very dense discussion and interesting, but we're running at the end, at the closure. So do you mind if I share your emails in case there are like some follow-up questions?
Yeah,
sure. Okay, thank you. Maybe the other committee can help me to share the emails in the chat box. And also I would like to kindly remind participants to fill in the evaluation form. Mohon Bapak Ibu mengisi form evaluasi yang sudah di-share di kolom chat. So I can spend a whole day talking to you, gentlemen, because there are so many things that I would like to discuss, including the huggable hologram that Pat was prototyping. That was like really interesting, and I might need it. So maybe I really hope we will get the chance to organize such lectures again in the future, since there are so many things that we still need to discuss. And we will be welcoming Ajahn Wirasak here in Malang a few weeks from now. Yeah, and if you have further questions, they already shared the emails in the chat. Kalau Bapak Ibu masih ada pertanyaan, Bapak Ibu bisa menyampaikan melalui email yang email Pat maupun Prof. Wirasak yang sudah di-share di kolom chat. Okay, so I'm sorry, before we close.
I shared correct, it had to you, it's actually pat@mit.edu. The first email.
There are two U's, right? Okay, all right. Jadi
the
email
one had one U. Yeah.
Email yang betul yang hanya ada satu U untuk Pat. All right, so everyone is thanking you. And maybe before we close, I would like to have some closing remarks from Pat and Ajahn Wirasak. Maybe Ajahn Wirasak, you have some closing remarks first.
Yes, that's the title of this talk. Was that? So why we are going to jump into the digital phone? Yeah. It's a really futures in the area of the healthcare as well. So I think I suppose what Pat and myself shared to all of you would be a benefit for your work or your interest, right?
Definitely. And Pat, maybe there are some closing remarks that you would like to share.
Sure. You know, there's a phrase saying that the best way to predict the future is to invent it. Right, and I want to invite all of you to be part of that invention. You know, we are at a very special time in history where we have powerful technology like AI, virtual reality, you know, all kind of technology that can really, you know, make us revolutionize healthcare and beyond. And we, you know, the scientists, researcher, engineer, or doctors, we are part of this, and we can really make something incredible here. So I congratulate you for having this incredible symposium. I'm impressed with the theme, as I mentioned, and I think the future of Indonesia is very bright in your hands.
Thank you. So maybe to close this event, I would like to invite our Vice Dean for Education and Research, Professor Dr. Saifur Rahman, specialist in cardiology, to deliver the closing of today's event. Prof. Saifur. Time's yours.
Yeah, it was very nice and very excellent talk. I was actually hearing your lecture by doing the PCI, by putting the stand, but still very, very, very nice. I really hope that someday Pat also can come here and talk many things, and also we hope for the next many our staff will also learn about the AI, and then I really hope that in the near future we are developing the system which is elaborate the medicine of traditional medicine and also the technology, and hoping also the Dr. Aulia will help us whether Dr. Pat might be have some connection and we'll send the staff there, and then we have a collaboration. Anything will be fine because very interesting. We hope that UB for the next time learn much how the MIT develop the technology, especially in medicine. Anyway, very much thank you for your excellent talk and discussion. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Very much, Prof. Saifur. So with this, we would like to officially close this. Once again, a heartfelt thanks to both of our speakers. We are so honored to have both of you here today. And we really hope everyone had a great time. And with this, I would like to close this. Alhamdulillahirobbilalamin. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Have a great day, everyone. Goodbye.
Bye. Thank you very much. Bye.
Okay, thank you for Dr. Aulia as moderator, and thank you to Associate Professor Werasak Surarunkai and Mr. Patradaporn for your interesting lecture. I'm sure all of us receive great values and benefit from this lecture. Thank you for taking the time to be with us here today. Okay, excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, we have now come to the end of the case lecture. On behalf of the host, thank you for your support and appreciation. Thank you very much for attending. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning to you and have a great day.